4 minutes after 12, a slight change of pace now. But before we move on to the next question, I owe you an apology. I have omitted, shamefully, some of the most trenchant and acute analysis of the Russian situation and the threat posed by Vladimir Putin from the programme so far. And I have no excuse because, I mean, it's at my fingertips. I've got it actually in front of me. And I can't believe that I forgot to share it, because as we try to make sense of this madness and we try to understand what might constitute the most meaningful response to Vladimir Putin's increasingly evil machinations, how could anybody have overlooked the contribution of the geopolitical titan that is this man?
Russia should go away. It should shut up.
And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I need to go and get my notebook. Please play that again, James, because I'm not sure I fully appreciated the full depth and sophistication of Gavin Williamson's analysis of the Putin-esque threat.
Russia should go away. It should shut up.
I'm not going to lie to you. It's a tough week. And I'm just a gob on a stick sitting in a studio. But there's a psychic toll when you talk to people like John Sweeney about the dead bodies that he's been looking at that morning, when you speak to people like our guests Oksana and Lana, who've got family members living in limbo, living in the complete unknown. You speak to people who've been sheltering in car parks or basements of buildings, people who are facing the possibility of lost loved ones, people who are stuck, all manner of privations being solved. It takes a psychic toll. So by way of light relief, I am tempted just to intersperse this clip with a few words from me for the next hour.
Russia should go away. It should shut up.
Because you can say many things about Gavin Williamson. The thing you can't say about him is that, well, he deserves a knighthood, apparently. I'll say that again. Gavin Williamson, the former Education Secretary and Chief Whip, has been put forward for a knighthood by Boris Johnson. A knighthood. When I was a kid, I didn't really know who'd got knighthoods. Did you know who'd got knighthoods? I wasn't that across it. One of the first knighthoods I remember noticing, and I think it's because I had one of those Penguin books. And even then, my social conscience kicked in because I wanted to know why the other fella didn't have one. Sir Edmund Hillary. One of the first... Sir Edmund Hillary was a knighted by the Queen for climbing Mount Everest, the first man to climb Mount Everest in the company of Sherpa Tenzing. And as a kid, I remember, I think I even asked my mum, why didn't Sherpa Tenzing get a knighthood? But I think Sherpa Tenzing was Nepalese and so probably didn't qualify for a knighthood, whereas Edmund Hillary was from New Zealand, which was in the Commonwealth, and therefore he got a knighthood. So when I was a kid, the first time I noted a knighthood, it was in response to being the first human being to climb the highest mountain in the world. A knighthood for climbing Mount Everest. In Brexit Britain, you get a knighthood for being this bloke.
Russia should go away. It should shut up.
Let's run through the greatest hits of Gavin Williamson, and then you can tell me, with your tongue in your cheek or not, why you think Gavin Williamson has just got a knighthood. We'll start with the A-Levels fiasco. Do you remember the A-Levels fiasco? In the midst of the first flush of COVID, he tried to introduce an alternative system for awarding A-level grades after exam cancellations. He was warned by pretty much everybody who knew what they were talking about that it would be a problem. But then once the system had delivered its results and everybody who understood what they were talking about realised it was unfair, he stood by the mix of computer algorithm and teacher assessments for about 48 hours, after which he completely U-turned. But by then, of course, much of the damage to students, university chances and public confidence had been done. So let's say that his most significant moment as Secretary of State for Education was to screw up the A-levels for an entire generation.
Russia should go away. It should shut up.
Let's come next to COVID. Many of the decisions about school closure. Oh, man, it's not even on the list. Do you remember when they shut the schools in the morning? No, opened the schools in the morning, said they were all perfectly safe, and then shut them again that evening and said, don't come in tomorrow. Another classic Gavin Williamson moment. The bigger picture, of course, was the absolute loss of confidence in any decisions being made by this man as they presided over both closures and catch-up attempts, providing people with laptops that never turned up, helping schools become more COVID secure by providing ventilators and other equipment that simply never appeared. And then, just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, we had the Marcus Rashford moment. Boris Johnson's government, I think, twice holding out against calls to extend free school meals, while Gavin Williamson was Secretary of State for Education, only to back down twice when Marcus Rashford got involved. It was, of course, Williamson's department that was in charge. It was also Gavin Williamson who told a newspaper that he had held a Zoom meeting with Marcus Rashford when in fact he'd met a completely different black sportsman who doesn't even play football. Actually, that's not fair on Maro Itoje. He's probably rather good at football, better than Gavin Williamson is at politics, but he is famous, Maro, for being a rugby player. That's the bloke that Gavin Williamson had actually been speaking to before claiming that he'd actually been speaking to Marcus Rashford. But, you know, on the plus side,
Russia should go away. It should shut up.
and now we come to the bit that's not funny. Gavin Williamson was sacked by Theresa May as, I think, somewhat incredibly, Secretary of State for Defence. But what you forget is that even before they got rid of pretty much everybody in the Parliamentary Conservative Party who could be described as having much of it, there are a few left. I won't embarrass them by naming them because the curse of O'Brien falls fast upon any Tory who I deign to say even the most vaguely warm things about. But Theresa May wasn't exactly spoilt for choice when she was assembling her cabinet because she had to choose people who were rabid Brexiters. Otherwise, she'd have had her head torn off by the Daily Mail. So Gavin Williamson ended up as Secretary of State for Defence. It was in that capacity that he famously told Russia to go away and shut up. But he was fired effectively for leaking. The Prime Minister, Theresa May, said she had seen compelling evidence. Just pause now, because we've gone in on the comedy side. 12:11 is the time. The then Prime Minister said she had seen compelling evidence that Williamson leaked information from a meeting of the National Security Council about the involvement of Chinese telecoms firm Huawei in the UK's 5G network. The Prime Minister said she had seen compelling evidence that the Secretary of State for Defence had leaked classified information from a National Security Council meeting. And Theresa May accordingly sacked Gavin Williamson as Secretary of State for Defence. So, I mean, incredibly, having been sacked in circumstances that would have ended any other political career at any other point in British political history, Gavin Williamson returned to the cabinet under Boris Johnson. He was also Chief Whip, of course, when Boris Johnson was Foreign Secretary, and he played a role in Boris Johnson's leadership campaign. It's astonishing to me how much stuff there is out there, because I'd forgotten that Priti Patel was fired by Theresa May as well for having secret meetings with a foreign government that she then lied about. But in Boris Johnson's Brexit Britain, being fired by a Conservative Prime Minister for leaking classified information from a National Security Council meeting gets you a seat in the cabinet of the next Conservative Prime Minister, and being fired by one Conservative Prime Minister for lying about meetings with secret meetings with a foreign government gets you a promotion to Home Secretary under the next Conservative Prime Minister. Just pause. Take your scarf off for a minute, please. Try to remember what it feels like to be part of a united country, even a vaguely united country, a country that could perhaps repel an invasion because we would recognise that for all our differences we are ultimately on the same side. And think for a moment about what it means to have Boris Johnson promoting Priti Patel to Home Secretary after the previous Prime Minister fired her for lying about secret meetings with a foreign government, and returning Gavin Williamson to the cabinet after a previous Prime Minister fired him for leaking secret information from a National Security Council meeting. And now give me a call and tell me why you think he's got a knighthood. 0345 60 60 973 is the number you need. Gavin Williamson, arguably, and my God, it's a crowded field, arguably the most ridiculous politician to have popped up in the post-Brexit era, to be knighted by the Queen, to be given the same honour that legends from Sir Edmund Hillary to Sir David Attenborough, with war heroes and scientific geniuses in between. He is being elevated to the same status as them. The man whose greatest contribution to world politics is this.
Russia should go away. It should shut up.
And I don't know why. I've got a theory and it's horrible. But I don't know why. I can't begin to construct a feasible or a plausibly positive reason for this man being elevated to this position. A catalogue, a catastrophe, an absolute cavalcade of failure typifies his every intervention in public life. So what is it about Gavin Williamson that Boris Johnson sees and thinks, bloody hell, I better give him a knighthood?